So there's something happening with AI right now that I find genuinely fascinating and honestly pretty underappreciated. Every other week, a new model drops, smarter, faster, cheaper. The benchmarks keep climbing. And yet the professionals I talk to, people doing serious work, are quietly telling me that AI feels less reliable than in their actual jobs than the demos would suggest. And I've been thinking a lot about why that gap exists. Here's the thing. It's not that the models aren't smart enough. They are. The issue is that these models don't know what you know. They don't know who the important people are in your life. They don't know how your team actually works. They don't know how to do the things that are obvious to you. And when AI doesn't know these things, it gives you back an answer that looks completely correct, but is wrong in exactly the ways that only you would catch. And that, my friends, is what we call context. And being strategic and intentional with that context is what we call context engineering. So in this video, I am going to show you exactly what this looks like in practice. And we're going to do it through something every professional deals with: inbox management. We're going to use Claude Cowork, and I'm going to walk you through a fictional scenario, a senior partner at a mid-sized accounting firm during peak tax season. We're going to learn how to set up the correct context here, so that way inbox management is something that you can reliably depend on an AI for. Here is our game plan. What we're actually going to do is we're going to run 3 demos on the same inbox. The first demo, we're actually going to provide it no context whatsoever. The second demo, we're going to provide it some context, but maybe it's skimpy on some of the details. And the last demo will actually provide it a good, solid, structured context document and rerun the demo then. Ultimately, at the end of this video, I'm actually going to give you a prompt so that way you can create your own context for your own inbox management. Let's get started. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Sunny, and I'm a serial founder now on my 4th startup. I'm also a former senior engineer at Bloomberg and Shopify, and currently an adjunct professor at Columbia Business School, where I teach tech and AI. Listen, I've been in this industry for more than 15 years, far before AI was in the picture. So I've made all the mistakes so you don't have to. And my goal for today's video, and really all my videos, is to help people like you make sense of this rapidly evolving AI tech landscape, and to really teach you strategies and mindsets to really extract the most value out of the AI tools that we have at our disposal. Let's get started with our first step. Let's start with this. I mentioned that we're going to really root this video in a fictional example. So meet Alex Chen. So Alex is actually a senior tax partner at Hartwell & Associates, which again is a fictional mid-sized New York City-based accounting firm. And right now it is peak tax season, and 20 emails has just landed in Alex's inbox overnight. So here's what Alex has to figure out, like in the next 10 minutes. Which emails actually need a partner's attention, which ones can wait, and which ones aren't even Alex's problem right now. Now, this is judgment work. It's the kind of decision every professional makes, like hundreds of times a week without even really thinking about it. And it's actually the kind of work more and more people are starting to hand over to an AI, because on the surface, it's kind of like a perfect use case. Sort things, prioritize, summarize. Like, how hard could that be for an AI? Well, let's see what happens. Okay, so as part of this demo, I've actually prepared a folder structure for you that you could download from one of the links below. You'll need this to kind of do this demo. So let's actually walk through some of the files that we have in this folder. So you'll see here we have the claude.md file, the bad version, claude.md file, the good version. And again, the claude.md file provides the co-work session instructions on the specific tasks that it is performing. From there, we actually have 2 HTML files. So I took some shortcuts with this tutorial. Instead of linking to a real Gmail inbox, we're kind of constructing a fictitious inbox. So that's what this inbox.html file is. We're going to double click and open it into a browser, and it's going to read from this inbox.json file. Now, what is in the inbox.json file? This is just a download of messages. Again, this is fake data, and I think it's important to just work and understand the concepts on this kind of contrived example, I'm also going to leave you with the prompt to extract real messages into this inbox.json file, so that way it'll all work in a production environment. But I would suggest don't start with connecting to your email just yet. And then finally, we have this triage template HTML. You'll see what this is in a moment, but in a nutshell, it is a UI that I have designed that will showcase what messages should capture your attention and what may not be relevant. We basically have an interface that allows you to visually see what's important, what's not. Again, not necessary, but because you can already kind of do this in the Claude Cowork session. It can generate maybe a markdown file in a table format. But I actually think that generating like a quick, what we call ephemeral UI is a major productivity move because it allows you to kind of just move a little bit faster. All right, let's move on. Now, before we actually start doing the demos, I want us to familiarize ourselves with some of the data that we're working off of, because it's very important to understand the data set that we have to have an opinion on what should be important and what should not be important. So again, I mentioned that this inbox.html is basically a fake Gmail interface instead of having to go to a real Gmail interface, and this links the data here. So when I double click on this, you'll see this looks like a Gmail UI. It's not. I just generated this. And what I need to do here to connect this to the data is click on this and then connect it to that inbox.json file. Okay, great. So now we have all our data. Again, this is not real. This is all fake emails and a fake UI, but we can still do the process of triaging here. And you'll see that we have all of these kinds of messages here. Let's go back. Great. So this is essentially all of the messages that are coming through. And what we'll want Claude Cowork to do is to triage them, tell us what's important, what's not. Okay, let's actually go through some of these emails. So this is the example inbox. There's a lot going on. Technically, these came overnight. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to design a Cowork session that is just triaging all the things I need right now for specific reasons. In this case, it's tax season, so we're really just trying to find things that are time sensitive, that are super important. Now, there's three particular people that I want to zero in on. So the first person is Jen Morales. So if you look at some of the Claude contacts that we have, Jen Morales is a paralegal who will send things that are particularly important. So we have this email right here from Jen, and then we also have a forwarding of certain documents. So that's something I want you to just remember. The other person that we want to talk through is Marcus Vale. So this is interesting. So this is a client, and this is someone who's re-engaging after a long time. So if you are in any kind of business development capacity or any kind of client management, client service position, you'll know that when a client re-engages you after a dormant period, that's probably something we want to action as soon as possible. So that's another person I want to bring up. And then finally, the other person, the last person that we'll talk through is David. So David is a managing partner. So what we'll want to do is we'll definitely want to make sure that this is urgent as well. So now that we've familiarized ourselves with some of the data in this inbox, what I want to do is I want to set up a Claude Cowork session. So in this case, I have this accounting inbox demo. This is the actual folder that we were just looking at. And we're going to make sure that the Cowork session is pointed to that folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in this prompt. Read the inbox.json file. Again, this is where the data actually lives. Triage each email. For each email, output the sender, subject, category, and one sentence reason. We're going to write the results to that template. So again, I pre-prepared this template for you, so that way it'll basically be in that format. All right. Now that we've familiarized ourselves with the data, with the different Claude versions, I want to do one more thing before I kick off my demo. I actually want to move this outside of the folder So that way Claude does not have access to it. And then we're going to rerun it with the bad version and then the good version. But first, we're going to do this demo with no version at all. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into Claude Cowork and I'm going to map to that folder that we just had, that we're basically working off of. Now it no longer has those two claude.md files. And then we're going to paste in this prompt. Very simple. Read the inbox.json data, which is where the actual the messages live. And then triage every email. We're going to give some guidance on the output. And then we're going to write the results to that triage template HTML. This is what I pre-prepared for you. It's a UI that can show you, visually present to you, the different tiers of messages. So you'll see that in a moment. But let's go ahead and send this up and see what we get back. Okay, so it looks like it's done. Let's actually see the results. Usually it'll pull up the triage template. We can just click Google Chrome and then we'll be able to open it up here. Cool. So this is the template that I've built for you, and this is basically triaging everything. These are the things that are super urgent. These are the things that we'll respond to today. These are FYIs, and then things that we could just completely archive. So let's take a look at what it's done. So firstly, I mentioned David, right? David is the managing partner. Anything he sends is urgent. That has been moved down to respond today. So we missed that. Jen Morales, again, sending us some very important documents. Again, this should be urgent. We missed that. Let's look at Marcus Vale. So Marcus Vale goes down to respond today. Again, this is yet another one that really should be surfaced up top. And Linda Park. Linda Park wants to, this is another one that I think is interesting. So let's go back to our inbox and see what Linda Park wanted. So it's interesting that Claude has suggested that we respond to this today. Well, this may not be super urgent when we're in tax season. So this is, again, incorrectly triaging everything. Okay, cool. So let's actually rerun this with the bad claude.md file. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paste that file back into the folder and just rename it claude.md and then reopen another Claude Cowork session. All right, so we're back in Claude Cowork. I'm going to paste this prompt. It's the same one, except the only thing is we're using the claude.md file. And just so you're aware, this is the claude.md file that we're working. It's very basic, but adds a little bit more guidance for the AI than offering nothing. So let's go ahead and run this. All right, so it's done. Let's open this up again. Okay, so we reran this. There were some changes, but the most important thing is our 3 messages that really should be marked urgent, specifically from David, Marcus, and Jen, are still not being treated as urgent, of course, because the system doesn't have any context around that. So what we're going to do next is actually set that context up. So before we move on, this is actually something I really want to kind of highlight. What we're seeing here is, in my opinion, probably the single most underappreciated risk with professionals overly depending on AI. Here's the thing. Everyone is worried about the wrong AI failures. The loud conversation is about hallucination, making things, which basically means making things up, confident nonsense, which is a real risk with AI. But there's another risk that is also important, and I would say more dangerous, and that is the quiet things that it gets wrong. In this case, it is quiet about miscategorizing things that may seem correct, but if you really know the nuance or the context, you'll know that it's incorrect. Like if you're a partner or a principal, you know that there's certain things that are just incorrect. And I think that is probably the most important risk to be paying attention to. The fix, by the way, is not a better model. It's actually just better context and really being strategic about the specific context you're providing, which all falls under the umbrella of context engineering. All right, moving on, we're going to do our last demo. This time, we're going to do it with the the better context. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out the context file for the better context. Let me do that right now. Before we run it, I want to just talk to you about what's in this file. So you see here we have a lot more information, a lot more specifics about who the person is, the key accounts, key people, that's particularly important, and how work is routed around me, the triage workflow, categorization rules, things like that. So there's a lot here, and I think that this is basically where you want to be in terms of tasks like this. So let's go ahead and see this in action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new task here. And I'm going to go ahead and copy the same exact prompt I did in the last session. Read the inbox.json, triage every email using categories from the claw.md. Now we have the better one in place. Let's see what it comes back with on the other side. All right, so it's done. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. So I'm going to go back to my triage page, and now I see I have David in here, Marcus in here, and I have all of Jen's email in here, which is great because that's exactly what I specified. Okay, great. So what I want you to do is I actually want you to do this yourself. So I'm going to provide you with a bunch of prompts. Again, will be linked below. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to create your own claude.md file. So what's great is you can actually use AI to generate this. So I'm providing you with this prompt, and we can paste it in here. And super simple, it's basically instructing Claude that we are building the claude.md file specifically for inbox triaging. It'll ask you a couple of questions. You will answer, and then on the other side, you will get that claude.md file, and then you can put that into the project. You can use the same exact file structure that I provided, and you can populate that there. So that is the first thing I want you to do. Once you have that, the next thing I want you to do is I actually want you to run this triaging. So you're going to open up a new Claude session here and then connect it to that folder. But what we need to do is we need to extract your inbox, maybe the last couple of days, into that JSON format. So in order to do that, you will need to have a connector set up to your Gmail inbox. So if you hit plus, you'll see connectors. I already have it connected. If you don't have it connected, you'll hit add connector and then select Gmail, and then it'll ask you to log in. And then from there, I provided you with another prompt, which basically will extract everything from the inbox and down to that JSON file I mentioned. Once that's done, you can rerun this prompt that I have here, which is read the inbox.json and triage it using the categories that Claude generated for you in that interview that I structured for you. All right, so we're at the end of the video, so let's recap a little bit. What you just witnessed was the same AI processing the same inbox 3 different times. And the only variable was the quality of the context. No context, the AI will fumble. Bad context, the AI will fumble confidently. And good context, the AI becomes something actually useful. And that is the real lesson I want you to take away from this video. Getting leverage from AI is not about picking the smartest model. It's about building the context that makes any model more smart about your work. That is the asset. That is the thing that compounds, and it's a thing that almost nobody is investing in right now. Now, if you stuck around to the end of this video, I appreciate you. I will see you on the next one.